Thank you. Good to see you.
Excellent.
And congrats on your PhD. Wow.
Thanks, man. Okay, good. So the show. It's so fantastic to see you again, and really honored that we've got this opportunity and some time in your busy diary to talk about your success. And I mean, if I think back to the last time we chatted about what you were going to be doing, that was a couple of years ago now, and you were looking for a bit of advice. So just tell our listeners. I mean, they're really interested to hear from people like yourself about going through decision making of what to study and how it works out, and what you thought was important beforehand and when you get into it, etc. So just give us a bit of background, what you've been studying, and how that turned out for you.
Hi, Peter. It's so good to see you again. And what an innovative platform that you have here, even during lockdown. So I think it's so good to see that people are still making magic through lockdown. Well done. So from my side, I recently completed my BCom degree with Da Vinci Institute, and I think that has just been a personal goal for me, something that I wasn't able to do when I completed, school. So it was something that I had to achieve for myself. Um, I'm currently working at FNB. It has been my first job, coming out of school. And I think I was always afraid to leave the bank because I didn't have a degree. And I was one of those individuals that felt that this was something that you needed to go out there and to make it in the world. And when I embarked on doing my BCom business management, I realized that there's there's a lot more. You know, the organization that I work for had given me this wonderful opportunity, and through going through all of the years, year 1 to 3, you understand that there's tools that you now have to understand where the gaps are, understand what opportunities are there for you to add value in the organization from a day to day basis, and to understand what the root causes were, using systemic thinking, things that I didn't have in my toolbox previously. And this process allowed me to be closer to what I was doing because you were able to apply your learnings on a daily basis. And it gave me such self satisfaction.
Mm.
You know, it's not that I didn't enjoy my job previously, but it was a new level of enjoyment, a new level of adding value, a new level of reading and understanding that learning is an ongoing process that is never going to end, no matter how
Yeah.
old you are.
Yeah.
So it's been a wonderful experience for me, and it was great to add value to my organization and continue. And where I felt like, or I had it in my head that this degree to leave the bank, it turned around to I can add so much value to my organization, and this is where I want to be actually. So that was a huge realization for me through this process.
That's fantastic, Kribashnee. And I just wanted to pick up on a couple of topics that you mentioned because I think it's so valuable for people, who have either gone through studies or they're busy with studies. I mean, you studied part-time, so it was a lot of work, and I want to get to that as well just now. But it was so interesting that you mentioned the mindset, that you sort of the change that you went through as a result of having this opportunity to study, and that perhaps took you to another level in terms of where you were at the moment. So for me, I mean, my takeaway from what you're saying there is that for you, student success really was a lot of a mental shift with a lot of skills that then empowered you to, once you'd made that shift, to be then successful at the next level. So on the one hand, you've got your degree, and that's a fantastic accomplishment. But on the other hand, just explore for me a little bit this idea of student success being for you the new way of thinking and the new approach to your job and to your life and people around you and the ongoing learning that now perhaps has been sparked in you, and hopefully that's going to continue on into postgraduate studies and lots more success from that point of view.
Yeah, so I think what stood out for me in each and every module as I went through it, it was a process of deeply understanding that topic through application. So you had to look at your workplace and where are the gaps? Is this process working efficiently? Or if it, a simple thing as conflict within a team, is it, you don't look at it on the surface. Understand, is there a root cause to this? And those small differences have quite a big impact to not only the business unit, but the team. It has an impact on the process. It has an impact on just the way of working for a longer period of time. And more to the organization, are you able to just add value in society? So
wonderful, Kribashnee.
Having that mindset of just thinking broadly and continuing to look at what are you reading, what is motivating you, because as I came to the end of my degree, I was actually really sad. I was so sad that I felt as if this what motivated me. I was losing almost, with my learning on a ongoing basis, and that is why I think I was one of the students that really bugged the Da Vinci Institute for the postgrad qualification, and I think I was one of the first to make sure that I was registered because I was just so eager to continue learning in the academic environment. Yeah.
Why was that, Kribashnee, and what was it in particular? Was it a particular lecturer or a particular module or a particular topic, or as you say, the application of those skills almost in real time? You didn't have to wait until you finished your degree before you could actually practice those skills in real time. You learned something at a lecture the night before, and now the next day with your team at the organization, you're adding value. The success for you as a student was a real-time outcome. Is that something
Yes.
now that you feel you just want to do more and more of?
Yeah, I felt that real-time outcome motivated me. It allowed me, it kind of guided me in terms of what should I be reading, what is happening external to just my organization. Right now, people are not just talking about the fourth industrial revolution. That's happening. Now it's about the fifth industrial revolution. It's through studying, it allows me to pick my head up and look at what's happening around. Peter, I know a lot of students that are studying probably have high pressurized jobs. And it's very easy to be like an ostrich and have your head in the sand and just concentrate on what is going on in your daily life. But with this, it allows me to lift my head up and take a broader view of what is going on around the world and just on that topic. So that's what I enjoy.
So would that be some advice to other students? And obviously, we've got part-time students and we've got full-time students, and you obviously felt that, being part-time, while it was probably a lot of extra work and sacrifice, there was a greater benefit of applying those skills in real time. So, just maybe to build on that, what would be your advice for part-time students, people that are going through something like yourself, studying a business degree in that academic world, but then having the opportunity on a daily basis to come back in and practice those skills? And it's about embracing it, and it's about living, that opportunity and making the most of it. So what specific advice would you have for part-time students in a similar position to what you've been through in your own studies?
Yeah, I think it's like an organization has a strategy and goals, objectives. Um, Understand that just as um, your human self, has or should have a strategy and goals and objectives. And what is it for you? Because that's where I needed to go. Um, it is what kept me motivated when things got really difficult. You know, I went back to, why did I start this? What is the outcome that I would like to achieve for myself? Because no matter the amount of support that you will get from your family, your friends, your kids, it's still left to you to complete. It still comes down to you making that decision to complete that assessment when your job is under pressure, your family life is under pressure. You've still got to find the time in the 24 hours to make it happen, because nobody else can help you with that. So yeah, for me, what was important is contracting, contracting with family, with friends, um, because they do have an influence over you, and not feeling guilty when you need to say no, I can't attend because I need to complete an assessment, I need to complete some reading, and just having that understanding that, hey, continue with it. That's just where the conversation ends. It doesn't go on to a guilt trip. So that was something I did early on in my studies. My son was 2 at that time, and even he had a contract with me.
Wow.
And,
what did that look like? Talk to us a bit about that.
That looked like, when the room door is closed, I am busy reading,
Okay.
and do not come in. But he's grown with me studying. So even with me continuing with it now, he understands that it's important, and he can now relate to him doing schooling. So I think, with kids, if they're exposed to it and you diligent about it, they give you the relevant support. And I think it is about, not being shy to outsource help where you need, because we all have limits, and we just need to understand where our limits are. What is it that we need help with, so that we can call in that help? Being a mom, being a wife, um, I have limits and I can't see to everything. So there's certain responsibilities I'd outsource to my helper to get the necessary help that I need at home, to allow me to complete what I need to from a study perspective, to give me that time. And it's just about um, you know being self-aware and being able to manage yourself to achieve the goals that you need to achieve. So that's kind of what my advice would be to other students out there, and just never miss an assessment. I think there was a time when my son was in hospital, in my first year, and I still completed my assessment with him being in hospital, because
Wow.
because the reality of it is that pressure just mounts when you miss those timelines. And when that pressure mounts, it's a snowball effect. You're now going to deal with the pressure. You're now going to deal with your demotivated self. And you're now going to start asking yourself the wrong questions. So upfront, don't miss that deadline.
Wow, that's an incredible story, Kribashnee. I mean, thank you for sharing that with us. And I also get a lot of people asking, how to get more done in their day. And I mean, I actually just finished wrapping up a course which has been live for a while now, about practices and principles for getting more done in your day. And I think you've talked about a couple of those. So there was the contracting to manage the relationships with people around you, and then outsourcing just to create a little bit more time in your day, etc. But maybe talk to us a little bit about some of the mechanisms that you put in place once you had that sacred time available and you were at your desk and the door was closed and things were being taken care of in the house and you sat down. How did you maximize that time that you had then carved out of your very busy and otherwise stressful day, and with the dedication of completing the assessment that you needed to do for tomorrow because you didn't want to put it off, it'll just add to another assessment that was due next week. What was your kind of tools and tips to get that assessment done when you had the time available at your desk?
Yeah, I think it's planning out exactly what is it that you want to complete, mapping that out, knowing where your research, communications were coming from, so that you could just sit down, complete your research, and then look at how you were going to structure that into the relevant assignment, assessment, whatever it was that you were completing. But I think having a very clear view of understanding what is it that I'm going to achieve in this 2 hours, 3 hours that I'm sitting here. Because as you said, the time is precious. If in those 3 hours you suddenly decided to clean your desk, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So just having a very clear mindset of I have 3 hours, and pre-planning in those 3 hours, what is it that you're going to do, and getting to completing that. So those were just the what I did when I sat down to complete my studying. Look, it's not easy. You've got to be flexible with yourself, and I think you've got to persevere, because there's certain instances where I found myself thinking about a question, and once you really get into it, you find new avenues that lead you somewhere else, and that topic takes you longer than you initially planned it would. So just remaining curious, so knowing what time frame you're working with, because unfortunately with studying there's a time frame for submissions. So if we want to remain curious and explore, it's going to lead us through different paths and we may miss that timeline. So just being self-aware, understanding your thoughts, and coming back to what is it, what's my goal, what am I trying to achieve here, and just continuing with that. I think sometimes through studying, I've found with the pressure at work, with projects not always going according to plan, there's a lot of that. And once again, you need to know where you're at as a person, and what is it that you need. Do you need to take leave to complete what you need to do? Because there was also a point in time where I had research work that needed to be completed. I hadn't started with my analysis. I was so out of my timeline, and I took 2 weeks of leave during the Easter holidays, and with those gave me additional time, and I just sat down to complete what needed to be done.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
so well done. So Kribashnee, I mean, just some brilliant insights there for people. And I mean, just on your point around planning ahead before you get that sacred time at your desk, I mean, in my course and in my own life, I mean, sometimes you've only got 10 minutes, for example. So I sort of talk about the power of 10 minutes. And as you say, if you're looking for a piece of paper, you're wasting 6 minutes. If you're, trying to find something on your desk, that's another 2 minutes gone. And then, before you know it, you're distracted onto doing something else. So, I mean, that idea of, contracting not only with other people around you, but perhaps with yourself, contracting with yourself to say, I'm going to use this precious time available. Everybody else has sacrificed for me to be able to do this. And then your second very important point was around, studying being an opportunity to research and to learn and to allow some threads of inquiry to develop. But then once again, within the boundary of some limitations of the 2 or 3 hours that you've got available, and also the assessment that might be due, frame you've got to complete your degree, making sure that you don't do too much of that self-discovery, because then you can really go off on and sort of look at a whole other range of other different topics. And as much as that might be interesting for, as you say, lifelong learners like ourselves and many people that are doing degrees, you also have to remember you need to get finished at some point, but perhaps make a note of those things and come back when you've got some time to do that
Yes.
extra reading. And then the last point that you made, which I think is so important, and something that part-time students, and I was also a part-time student, I followed the same practice as you did, is that organization does give you study leave, and it says, right, well, we want you to be successful as a student, and here's a certain number of days study leave. Take advantage of that and go and catch up on assignments, or if you, as you said, fell behind on your timeline, take 2 weeks, get yourself back on track, and then when you come back to work, you're fully focused. You're not stressed because you're falling behind as a student. So the organization would want you to take advantage of that study leave, so that you're not tired and staying up at night, and then you're out of the water in both your degree and your job. So it's better to sort one thing out so that you can actually perform in the other thing.
Yeah, and the one thing that I didn't mention that I did is reward yourself. Each year that I completed, I rewarded myself with something. And when I graduated, I got myself something special to remember that this was an accomplishment. This was hard. And I'm going to reward myself with something nice. So, yeah.
Excellent. That is so important. And I mean, not only when you got to the end of your degree, but as you went along and you passed those important milestones, you then said, well, I made a contract with myself up front, and I'm going to reward myself for fulfilling that contract and for, putting in all the hard work and getting through it. So what does the future look like for you then, Kribashnee? I mean, you've, I think, just been through a transformation now since we last chatted, and you were only thinking about getting going with your studies, and I can see you're confident, and your mindset is clear now, and you've obviously been through, as you said, some tough times in your studies, but you came through it. You've achieved what you wanted to. It's opened up your mind. It's set you on a fascinating path now. And what does that look like for you as a student, and what are the next steps, and how are you going to continue adding value and looking for that type of success?
So I think currently I'm busy rebuilding my team, looking at what it is like to have a high-performing team. IT is consistently under pressure, and we need to find new ways of working that is continuously improved. So I'm currently busy with that, and I've recently started my honors. It's going really well. I think we have to also look at the lockdown and create some positives out of it. So I'm taking advantage of not needing to travel and sit in traffic and increase my study time. So I'm hoping to complete that in a year.
So tell me, what honors is that, and what does it comprise of, and what will you sort of be investigating? Is it linked to your organizational role?
Yes, so it's business leadership. I think we recently, it's around looking at leadership. What is an effective leader? Well, that was the first module. But looking at all aspects of a leader, motivated leaders, self-aware leaders, looking at other leaders, observing them. So it's been interesting, an interesting start. And yeah, having just being in tune with yourself once again, it comes back to you, um, understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, and how do you take advantage of that to allow you to be effective as a leader.
I mean, I think as you were saying, getting into the sort of honors and the postgraduate level of studying, you probably got a little bit more freedom. There's not as much sort of content that is structured, and a little bit more freedom to go and investigate around a certain topic and to then pursue some of those interests perhaps that you didn't have time to do in the undergrad, and which now you can get back to with, you know, renewed vigor and interest and application in your organizational role. And so I think, you know, that research and writing, and then the almost development of those theories and the knowledge and the contribution that you are going to make from this is just going to increase and increase. I mean, that must be really exciting for you.
I think exciting and a little bit scared, nervous, because as you said, you know, with your postgrad, you get a lot more freedom, and it's a new studying way for me. So I'm interested to see how this pans out. But yeah, I believe in myself. I finish what I start, and I will do this.
And if you could talk to yourself, you know, 2-3 years ago, as you would be talking to the listeners that are tuned in at the moment, who are sort of either thinking about studying or studying part-time, as you have been, you know, just to build on that point there now, you said around believing in yourself, what would be some of the other words of wisdom that you would sort of either say to yourself a few years ago, or somebody listening in now that's kind of going through that part-time study and the stress and the ups and downs that you've experienced?
Yeah, I think, you know, we are most self-critical on ourselves. You know, where you think that that lecturer is actually, you know, thinking that your paper isn't good enough. Um, we are our own worst self-critics, and to just be a little bit kinder to yourself, um, you know, and just do your best. That's what I would tell my youngest.
I love that. That is so powerful, and it touches at the sort of the emotional aspects of studying, and the fulfillment that you can get from that academic pursuit if you give yourself the space, both from a time perspective, but also from an emotional perspective, to say, listen, you're not going to get it right first time. You're going to have to try a few things. You're going to settle into a rhythm. Don't give up. Keep going. You are going to be able to get through. So, I mean, what I really took out of your insights is that, you know, it's about space and contracting up front, and then within that, you know, to allow yourself the flexibility balanced with some amount of discipline. So, Kribashnee, I mean, what I'm really interested to understand, I mean, now you've been through this process, you are studying at a postgraduate level, and what is it that you think in terms of resources and the kind of content and support and community that you think we could do more of? I'm very passionate about student success, and I offer coaching, you know, both online and in person. And what do you think are students looking for in that type of a community, in that type of environment, and that you think could be useful to people like yourself and going through what you've been through, and to help them just do better, do more, go further, be a better self, you know, achieve more as you have done yourself?
I think over and above the motivation, um, it's about maybe critical thinking. You know, just the tools for critical thinking, because that is a major part of research work and writing. And do we all understand and cover those aspects adequately? Um, yeah, I
I mean,
say just more coaching on those. Um,
I love that, Kribashnee, you know, the point that you made there around critical thinking, because, and I teach this in one of my courses about achieving higher levels of academic performance. And the first lesson really is to start with that mindset and to say that you own your degree, you own your academic objectives. And once you have that mindset correct and you feel that you have sufficient credibility, either from previous work that you've done, to now then engage with the literature that's out there, and then to use, if you're studying part-time, the field work and data gathering and people and insights that you've got access to, as you say, critically engage with them, bring those insights and understand what is going on in the lives of people in whichever industry you're in, and for yourself in the IT world, to then make that contribution through the critical thinking process. Okay, that's great, Kribashnee. That's really, really interesting. And I think just to sort of start wrapping up, what does success look like for you from an academic point of view in the next couple of years? And I mean, just give us a sense of the sort of critical thinking contribution that you want to make. And I'm sure that's going to be part and parcel of a continued growth in your own mindset and skills. But what I really sort of have learned from you is you set your sights, and then you work out how you're going to get there. And so not only are you going to make a contribution, but you're going to grow as an individual as well. And so just maybe sketch that out for us in the next couple of years.
Yeah, so I think, right now, we 6 in a class for this postgraduate degree. And we've already had a team building, and that involved our first assessment submission. So that was making sure each of us submitted. So we're a small group that will get through. And I think I'm worried that we're such a small group, and the master's is already there. So yeah, I think that's where my mindset is, getting this done and probably completing the master's in business leadership. I would love to do that. And continuing to add value in my organization, in society, and knowing that learning never ends, and we need to just remain humble through the process.
Wonderful, Kribashnee. I mean, I've certainly learned so much from our time together today, which I really appreciate. And I'm so thrilled to see the progress that you've made, both as an individual and in terms of your academic excellence that you've achieved and the contribution you've made to your organization and the team around you. And I can just see that it's, had such a positive effect, on your confidence and your outlook. And I'm just so looking forward to catching up with you as you go through the next phase, as you say, in postgraduate studies. And it's going to get tougher, but you'll grow with that, increased expectation.
And I'm hoping to pick your brain when I have my moments where my brain feels like it's tired and I don't know where to go. Because, it's important to have this coaching, knowing that there are options to keep you going. You're not alone in this, and get the help when you need it. So I'm so excited to know that there's another avenue out there for me, Peter. I'm really excited for what you're doing, and looking at how I can work with you as well.
Thanks, Kribashnee. Well, that is where my heart is, to help students like yourself learn as much as they can if I have anything to offer, but also to learn from each other and to create a safe space within which there's that community. And like you've done this afternoon, to just talk openly and candidly about what you've been through and how you grew, and some of the tips and the techniques that you applied, and that now I think people will have benefited from and been able to apply in their own studies, which has been so incredibly valuable. So Kribashnee, thank you very much for being with us today, and I just wish you everything the best with your studies and the next phase of your academic journey.
Thank you, Peter, and all the best for the Student Success podcast.